suppose. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 22nd Filecoin Biweekly Core Devs meeting on Thursday, July 15th. I'm going to drop the agenda in the chat. We've got a few things that we should talk about after we go through our updates. Another FIP that's worth, or we need to revisit FIP 16, which we talked about in a few meetings ago. And then there's a few Lotus side issues that we've noticed that are somewhat consensus critical. They're all fairly minor, fairly inconsequential, but is relevant for this group and stuff that we'd like to slightly improve on and change in the next network upgrade. So we'll go into this. But let's start off with updates. Let's say, Forrest, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yes, updates from us. We got Prometheus metrics now, so that's pretty cool. We got some dashboards up and going. We're continuing to finish up, more of the CLI functionality so we can have a better user experience when we launch. We're going to start making a push on documentation sometime next week, probably after we wrap up the CLI stuff. So we have a bunch more stuff to document. Yeah, in terms of V13, we have pretty much everything implemented. I'm just trying to iron out some consensus mismatching right now. So, doing state diffs, analyzing the state and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we should probably be back on mainnet in a couple days or something. Yeah, I think that's it from us.
Cool. Regarding audit stuff, has everything that was flagged been resolved or flagged as like a one fix?
Yeah, so pretty much most of the remediation stuff is done. I think we have like one more thing that we need to patch up, a couple more things, I'm not sure, but most of the major ones have been fixed, and then some of the other ones are I guess things that will require like a network hard fork to fix. For example, like accepting non-UTF-8 strings, that kind of stuff. Yeah, probably gonna do all that once that gets fixed in ActiveG6 or whatever version is next.
Sounds good.
Lost track of the numbers.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fair. Sounds good. I think there's been some kind of crosstalk about some of those issues, but if there are kind of protocol sensitive ones, maybe it'd be useful if maybe the next core devs meeting we can kind of go over the ones that are that would require network upgrade to fix and kind of talk about whether we want to fix them in the next upgrade. Yeah, but that's great. Thanks. Yep, sounds good. Cool. Any questions for Forrest? Cool. Let's hear from Venus, maybe Stephen, if you can.
Hello everyone. For Venus, as in last few weeks we achieved very good one. We passed this audit.
Sorry, I'm not able to hear you, Stephen. I don't know if others are having the same issue.
Yeah, me also.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, you're not.
You can hear me now?
Yes, but you're coming in and out, so it's a little difficult to follow.
Yeah.
We missed you again, Steven.
Okay, maybe we'll try again or get an ASIC update from Stephen. I think he may have dropped for now. But if you want to move on to Fuhan, we'll see if we can revisit him later.
Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. Morning and day for other people. So for Fuhan, we are currently working on preparing documentation for the security audit. We are working on preparing the code work and polishing the stuff that we needed to, that we want to do before the code freeze. The other thing we are currently working is testing our node with Lotus Miner on InterOpNet. We have several incompatibilities here and there, and we are currently working on figuring them out. Nothing major so far, but yeah, well, currently we have an issue where a Lotus miner is not receiving notification about the message status for some reason, and we're currently figuring it out. So probably the problem is on our side and somewhere in the notification channel, but we will have to check. So this is something we are currently debugging and figuring out the issue. Otherwise, we are currently, well, we have also faced an issue on the mainnet node. And it's quite a strange one. So we've been testing our mainnet node on the virtual machine, which has, well, obviously virtual memory, but recently we have faced an issue where there was a part of memory was corrupted, and our dependency in libc, well, something in libc has broken, and it was not able to access memory, which is usually not the issue, and the libc is quite widespread library, so it's quite low probability that the problem is in the software. So we'll have to, what we did was we have moved to our testing, well, mainnet node to the dedicated server without shared memory, and we will see if it will resolve the issue. So yeah, that's the status for the Fuhon.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Let us know if we can help investigate it. But otherwise sounds good. Regarding InterOpNet, yeah, sorry that it took a while to get you folks some funds on InterOpNet to test. And we'll discuss the status of InterOpNet a bit later. I think it'll probably need a reset because of one of the Lotus bugs that we're going to be talking about. But yeah, that sounds good. I think Stephen was having a hard time with his internet connection, so he provided an update async in the Zoom chat, just reading it out for the benefit of anyone viewing. Later, the main achievement of Venus is that we have the security audit done and got the final report published. That's great. And the V1 has been released, which is very exciting. Now working on incubation launch preparation. So that's cool. Always nice when you have a 1 in front of your release number. Second. Perfect. Cool. Lotus side, what's going on in Lotus land? For the most part, lots of exciting things actually. So in terms of releases, we're testing our v1.11 release, which is about 3 months worth of dev work because a bunch of network upgrades kept jumping ahead of the queue, and so we kind of had like a bunch of like new features and bug fixes sitting in stasis for a while. So that's on RC2, and we're kind of like putting it through the testing measures right now, hoping to cut the release itself next week. Apart from that, a bunch of exciting stuff has landed at master. One of the important ones is, so we're what we're calling split store, and there's a bunch of documentation that I can share async, has been in Lotus for a while, and it's getting more and more important, and we're hoping to get it production ready. One of the important features that it enables is online garbage collection, so that if you only want to like validate the node but not keep old chain history, which is what most people running on Filecoin are doing these days, it enables that to happen automatically. So you throw away old state once you don't need it anymore for consensus purposes. We also have a fairly major refactor of the way the Lotus miner interacts with the markets module, and how the deal making happens around that. I'll drop a link to that as well. So both of these have landed in master. They'll probably be going out into a release later this month. And then, yeah, those are kind of the chief updates on the Lotus dev path. Also kind of got to focus on testing right now. We refactored how tests, we basically refactored the entire Lotus integration test suite to make it much more reliable, easier to write tests, and just generally, we also had a big problem with test flakiness, so that's been resolved. So there's a bit of a testing push going on, which, you know, always a good thing. And obviously a lot of monitoring hyperdrive and making sure things are going well there. So far things have been good. We shipped a 1.10.1 hotfix release that just had a few minor improvements on top of the hyperdrive release, but there was nothing too significant in there, which is good. Cool. Do folks from the foundation have an update? I don't know if Sonia, Dudley, I don't know if any of you have things you want to share.
Sure. I think from the foundation side, we're excited by the Hyperdrive launch and all the buzz that's been in the community by that. So awesome job on that. And like Stephen mentioned, the incubation center, I think it's launching soon. And there's been several conversations about what it means to be a storage miner on Filecoin. So it would be great to get these groups' view on what we can really, how we can lead that conversation with the storage miners in the community. And then lastly, the foundation is hiring. We have several roles available, and if there's anyone who's excited about Filecoin, we'd be happy to have you join us.
Very exciting. I will be sure to drop a link to your available positions in the notes of this. Oh, that's cool. Dudley, did you have an update you wanted to share?
Yep. So primarily of interest for the implementer series that we will be extending the bug bounty program to all implementations of Filecoin. So I've already spoken with Eric about this a little bit, but I will reach out to Maxime and Stephen about this probably after this meeting to arrange meetings where we kind of walk through it, what your responsibilities would be, which we pretty much leave, up to you guys as we're not in control of you, but also how we will function with like the rewarding process and things like that. Should be fairly simple, a few kinks to work out, but yeah, excited to get it done. We'll probably do an announcement once every implementer is onboarded.
Very cool. Yeah, there's an interesting question about when implementations want to like kind of get started with that in terms of where in your development process. But it sounds like most folks are already pretty close to productionizing and getting mainnet ready. So now's a good time to start to find some of those bugs. Cool, thank you. All right, anyone else who had an update they wanted to share or any questions about anything we talked about? Cool, sounds good. All right, maybe first up, let's talk about some of this Lotus funk. Let's start with the price list conversations, and if you wanna share our findings and fixings there and how it'll impact the other teams.
Great. So I'm going to share a link to a Go State Types PR, and yes, that's PR 30 in Go State Types. And I'm also going to share a Lotus PR. It's PR 6766 if you're watching the recording. So yeah, basically we were looking through the price list, trying to clear up some technical debt. We noticed that the price list was indexed on Epic. We want everything to be more or less indexed on network version. So we tried to make the price list based on version, and we found that the Epic before the very first Calico Epic had a consensus change from the previous Epic, meaning that version 6 actually has one Epic in it where there's a consensus difference because the price list indexing was off by 1. So Calico upgrade height is actually the last block before Calico, but we were using it to price out the gas parameters for the for the last Epic before Calico. So the way to get around it, there's none of this version stuff is actually on chain, so it's not a huge deal. But we do want to associate a version with consensus differences. So if you check out the Go State Types number 30 PR, we're adding version 6.5 to this library, which is used by actors on Lotus. Everything should work out fine because all the orderings are preserved because we're using in a num. And then the Lotus PR 6766, it's still not through review or anything yet, but it's up with the changes to fix this so that the price list is based on version. So for other implementations, I'm not sure how you all are doing it. Probably going versus, I'm sure you must be. Yeah, I'm guessing you must be going by Epic because there was no problem syncing Calico, or I guess if there was no problem syncing Calico, that's the case. But I guess as a heads up, it probably makes sense to do things based on version and to use this version 6.5 for that one weird block on mainnet. Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, just kind of thinking about the impact of this. Obviously, things for the most part happened fine. Was the new price list kicking into place earlier, or like one block earlier, or one block after the network version change itself?
Yeah, so from what I gathered from trying to sync this with the off by one error fixed across the Calico boundary, it's one before which has the issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this could have been bad. Would it be correct to say this could have been bad if between the price lists we took away between as we changed from old to new, we took away or put in some like incorrect or nonsensical value for like essentially if we deprecated something that we were charging for earlier, that could have probably caused an issue. If there was a message that actually triggered that, because we tried to use the old price list or tried to use the new price list too early.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to say. It seems like in most cases, price list changes shouldn't have a big impact, like based on Epic. Like I think the biggest risk here would be that different implementation, like somebody actually implemented it correctly and then Lotus had it wrong, and then there would be a fork. Yep. That's yeah, I guess what I see is the worst case, but thankfully that didn't happen, or not that we know of.
Yep, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, any questions from the other implementers? This should be a minimal change. It should be the situation if we were doing things correctly, then things stay the same. But it's something we definitely want to clean up. And the next time we actually have a network upgrade, the price list should change at the right time, along with the rest of the network. Sounds good. Cool. I also wanted to talk about this is Lotus Issue 3613. I'm dropping it in chat now. So this is an issue that we kind of opened and closed and then unfortunately had to reopen. It's very much a somewhat minor edge case thing that mostly has kind of like theoretical implications for people that like thinking about theory. The question is around how Lotus fetches randomness when there are null blocks. So before the hyperdrive upgrade, so before network v13, what Lotus was doing was if there was a null tip set at round 10 at epoch 10, and let's say that the Filecoin epochs and DRAND rounds are the same in this case, then what Lotus would do when you try to fetch the randomness at round 10 was give you the randomness at round 9, which is fine for practical purposes, but isn't correct from a theoretical perspective, and it's not what the spec says. So we fixed this in hyperdrive, and I think the other implementations also made that fix. Unfortunately, we didn't fix it correctly. Where now what happens is if there's a null subset at round 10, we wind up giving you the randomness for round 11. So we go forward instead of just giving you the randomness for round 10. Again, no real world impact for the most part, but it's still wrong. So but for the most part, again, kind of like the price list issue, the important thing is that it runs the risk of throwing other implementations out of sync when this happens. So definitely take a look at that. And unfortunately, because Lotus has so much of the mining power, the bug is just going to stick on mainnet. So something we'll fix in the next network upgrade, but you definitely want to take a look at this issue. Anyone else implementing Filecoin out there, if you want to sync mainnet, you'll probably have to unfortunately implement this bug. Yeah, a bit unfortunate. There's also a bit of an open question around how we can catch something like this. Obviously, this is why you want multiple implementations, because in all likelihood, some other implementation would have caught this. In this case, I think Venus said they ran into it on calibration net, but like it didn't get alerted to the right level, and so we didn't actually fix it. So moving forward, I think there's a bit of a note that when we're testing that like calibrate, well, there's a couple of notes. Have a longer testing window on calibration end so that cross implementations can catch stuff like this. And when testing stuff like this on test networks, if we do notice issues, we really need to like talk them through, and because in all likelihood some implementation has a bug, and we need to reason what the correct thing to do there is. It would have been very nice if we'd caught this on calibration and it hadn't followed on mainnet. Any questions about it? Yeah, so it's not the nicest thing to be like, oh, there are these two bugs in Lotus that are kind of impacting mainnet, but there you have it. Cool. Last thing I have on the agenda at least was to revisit FIP 16. Let me drop a link in chat. This is packing arbitrary data in CC sectors. So the conversation is continuing in issue. Where's this? Give me a second to find it. There we go. Issue 57. That in chat as well. So yeah, so we talked about this, I think, like maybe a month or over a month ago in a core devs call, and there's kind of mixed opinions on this. I think a lot of this group thought it was a reasonable proposal and good to have. Since then, a few more people have weighed in on the FIP. I think Anor, Twan, and user OZHTDONG commented on it as well. So the objection that's kind of being raised by a few people is there's a few aspects to it. Number one, there's a question around how necessary it is, because as a result of hyperdrive and ongoing research, we're hoping that it just becomes cheaper and easier to publish deals. And so maybe that obviates the need for it a little bit. There's kind of this question around economy and how this impacts economy, where on some level, we do want, we kind of want the Filecoin, the token, to be the asset that's obviously securing the network and the asset that makes the network useful. And so you kind of want deals to be transacted in the same asset in order to kind of keep the economy secure. I have a harder time reasoning about that kind of thing, but I think that, yeah, curious to know what people think about that line of reasoning. The other thing that Einar's flagged that I think hopefully folks read is, it is nice to enforce that CC sectors have all zeros sealed in them, because that makes future kind of innovation and things a little more easy. And he shared a couple of proposals that would be impacted if we hadn't been enforcing this all along. So do we have, what are people's thoughts on this? Are people still in favor generally? Do we want to do this? When would we want to do it? What do people think?
Yeah, I think the concerns are quite valid. I think I raised similar concerns last time with respect to kind of like the whole market structure of having something like this. Yeah, I think if it's something that we really want, definitely got to do more research before we can, do it.
Okay. Yeah, so it kind of sounds like from a kind of engineering security perspective, there's no immediate objections that I'm seeing, except one that I raised, which is hyperdrive is going to be increasing the size of the state tree already, or at least has the potential to be doing so. So I'm a little wary of adopting proposals that add anything to the state tree right now, and this does. But that's more a question of timing than anything else. So I'm going to make a note that we definitely want a more thorough kind of crypto econ / economic security analysis. Yeah, I think the other thing that'll be useful is to get a sense of essentially how and when we might want to do this, like what the impact is. Like, do people already have lots of use cases out there that are like actively waiting for this proposal to be adopted, or is it just a nice to have that we get, in which case it kind of lowers the priority a little bit. So there's kind of some surveying work to be done. But any other thoughts about FIP 16? I should mention that the authors of the PR also kind of fleshed out the implementation section, but Einor already reviewed that and raised some minor concerns, but generally I think the picture makes sense. So if we want to review that just to make sure there are no red flags there, that'd be good. But yeah, any other thoughts on the subject? Cool. Yeah, we'll push along some of this, some of the to-dos that we have here, and I'm sure we'll revisit it a little later. Cool. That's all I had on the agenda. We do need to start thinking about kind of scoping out the next network upgrade, next version of actors, like what we actually want in there. But right now we don't have, apart from these kind of very minor fixes that we talked about, there's not a lot that's kind of hurtling down the pipeline. So I'm okay to move somewhat slowly on that, especially as we wait to see how hyperdrive plays out and transforms the system. maybe in the next call we can start just scoping out, if only, what kind of consensus critical bug fixes we might want. I'll put that as a note for next call. Cool. Oh, one other item that I did have in the agenda was interopnet. So because of the price list issue, that why it was, well, as a weird side effect, I should say, of the price list issue and the way we set up interopnet. Interopnet is the first network we ever deployed that starts directly from v5 actors, so it doesn't start from v0 and go through all the upgrades. As a result of that, interopnet wound up using a completely wrong price list and is using it today. So the network is usable, but you would have to intentionally go and use the wrong price list. If other implementations wanted to sync it, there's very much just a Lotus bug / a bug in how we're setting up networks. So I think probably what we'll do there is just fix that within Lotus, and then reset the network so that interopnet is actually useful and usable for testing out compatibility, minor work, and so on. I think the Fuhan team in particular is relying on it, so we'll definitely keep it alive. Cool. Anything else anyone wanted to discuss? Floor is open. Okay, sounds good. We can wrap up here. Lots happening as always. It'll be exciting to see some of the other implementations go live on mainnet soon. I think that'll be good and really improve the security of the network. So whatever we can do to expedite that, I want that to kind of be like one of our as a group or one of our top priorities for kind of the second half of the year. So whatever anyone can do to expedite that process, we'll do it. Cool. Thanks everyone. See ya.
Peace.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks.